The Line, a dazzling vision of the future, is Saudi Arabia's boldest leap yet into the realm of urban innovation. Imagine a city stretching over 100 miles, carving into the desert as a single, uninterrupted line touted as the epitome of efficiency. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman calls it the blueprint for a sustainable Saudi Arabia, a showcase of what the future can look like. But beneath its glittering surface lies a storm of controversy. It seems more like a flight of fancy coated heavily in royal ego than the promise of a futuristic Saudi Arabia. Experts predict that instead of propelling Saudi Arabia into a new era, the ambitious project is poised to become its Achilles heel. Today, we'll unravel this ambitious project's promises, pitfalls, and the truth behind the hype. Imagine a soaring vertical city with 0 cars, 0 streets, and 0 carbon emissions. That's not all this crown jewel megacity project is promising its residents. NEOM was launched in 2017 as a part of the Saudi Vision 2030 project. Located at the northern tip of the Red Sea, due east of Egypt across the Gulf of Aqaba and south of Jordan, it's planned to have an area of 10,200 square miles. It'll offer multiple regions, including a floating industrial complex, a global trade hub, tourist resorts, and a linear city powered by renewable energy sources called The Line. As envisioned by Saudi authorities, The Line isn't just a city. It's a radical redefinition of urban living. 2 parallel skyscrapers will stretch across 106 miles of desert and 1,640 feet into the air. These mirrored giants, just 656 feet apart, will form a city unlike any the world has seen. If completed, they'll rank as the 12th tallest structures globally, towering above nearly every major skyscraper on the planet. With its mirrored surface gleaming so brightly it could be visible from the moon, The Line aims to redefine the boundaries of human ambition. Stretching across the unforgiving expanse of the world's hottest desert, this city claims it will preserve 95% of NEOM's natural environment, all while encapsulating cutting-edge technology within its futuristic walls. If completed, the staggering $1 trillion megastructure will house up to 9 million residents, along with a complex to serve as the new hub for the Saudi government. The same government claims it's not just a city but a reimagining of urban living, where residents will enjoy climate-controlled comfort year-round. This oasis will be layered in 3 spaces stacked on top of each other. The first and topmost will be a layer of residential structure, followed by a service layer which will run supplies to the buildings. On the lowest level will be an ultra-high-speed train system. This will ensure that no journey is greater than 20 minutes in any direction. Time better spent on leisure or healthy pursuits anyway. Speaking of which, The Line boasts a floating business park in the shape of an octagon, an island resort, and also a ski resort in the middle of the desert, which of course will have artificially created snow. The land beyond the north facade of the buildings will stretch into a marina twice the size of existing marinas in the world. A tunnel and a canal will run through it, wide enough for large cruise ships to easily glide through. The same seawater will be used by its residents to drink and clean, made possible by massive desalination plants that will be set up for this very purpose. The city will offer smooth services through robot assistants and flying taxis, cocooning its residents in luxury beyond imagination. And who or what will be running the entire show on well-oiled wheels, or in this case, ones and zeros? Well, artificial intelligence, of course. AI will monitor the city and use predictive and data models to find ways to improve daily life for its citizens, with residents being paid for submitting data to The Line. All of that would need a lot of energy, so how would the city of 9 million people be powered? That's where renewable energy comes into the picture. Still, no cars means that its residents would have to rely on lifts and trains to transport them literally anywhere they want to go. Luxury aside, its proponents claim that there are very practical aspects to The Line where life would be all about walkability. Schools, clinics, shops, and green spaces will all be stacked vertically, just a 5-minute stroll away. It sounds revolutionary, but it also raises an obvious question. How can everything in a 106-mile-long skyscraper be just minutes away? Critics are asking, but the answers remain elusive, leaving many wondering if this vision is as practical as it claims to be. Mohammed bin Salman's vision for Saudi Arabia might include moving its economy away from fossil fuel dependence, all the while calling for more women in the workforce. Saudi Arabia claims that NEOM would create around 460,000 jobs and add an estimated $48 billion to the country's GDP. But Crown Prince Salman's methods of achieving his goal have been questioned by human rights groups. Amnesty International and the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights have openly criticized the project for its draconian methods. Thousands of people have already been forcibly displaced to clear the way, with entire villages razed to the ground in its relentless pursuit. The local Huaytat tribe has been protesting against its expulsion, with around 20,000 people expected to be forcibly relocated. The government's ruthless pursuit of the project already has a huge cost, and it's not the monetary kind of cost. Abdul Rahim al-Huwaiti was killed by Saudi security forces under disputed circumstances when he refused to abandon his home. 3 other members of the same tribe were later sentenced to death for resisting evictions. It's gotten so bad that Lina al-Hathlul, director of communication of the London-based Saudi human rights watchdog ALQST, reportedly said, "Our main concern is that NEOM is built on Saudi blood." No matter, on January 29, 2019, the Saudi government announced that it had established a closed joint stock company named NEOM, which is owned by the Public Investment Fund, and it went ahead with its plans. Saudi Arabia originally aimed to complete major parts of the project by 2020, to be completed on the whole by 2039, but fell behind schedule. By July of 2022, only 2 buildings had been constructed, and most of the project area remained bare desert. As of February 2024, over 90 million cubic meters of material have been moved, but it seems Saudi Arabia might have reached the end of the line even before it began. As a report by Bloomberg and the Wall Street Journal revealed in April of 2024, the city is being scaled down to just 1.5 miles, with less than 30,000 residents. However, this was denied by the Saudi economic minister, Faisal F. Al-Ibrahim, who stated that the project was continuing as planned. Meanwhile, pressing questions remain unanswered. How will renewable energy sufficiently power a high-tech metropolis of 9 million people? Naturally, the desert might not have water, but it will have plenty of sun. That only leaves the small question of what to do at night. What will power the climate control, the trains, and the lifts in the zero-carbon emissions city at night? Speaking of trains, how will one train system be adequate for 9 million people going about their day while meeting the 5-minute deadline? The robotic maids and flying cars envisioned have yet not been invented, and AI has yet to reach the sophistication required to run an entire city on its own. And where will the money come from, since the latest cost estimate of $1 trillion has broken the bizarrely ambitious $200 billion ceiling? The project is going full steam ahead, even though it has hit numerous snags and has been trimmed ruthlessly by a struggling Saudi exchequer. The Saudi government's response to criticism has been to deny. But the plans for the line raise more questions than they do answers. Experts have voiced deep skepticism about the megaproject's ambitious claims, casting well-placed doubt on its feasibility. Beneath the sleek, mirrored facade, shadows loom large. Ethical concerns, questions about the practicality of its design, and unproven promises of sustainability and cutting-edge technology yet to be invented. NEOM might be floated as a glimmer of futuristic hope, but it has been widely derided in architectural circles, despite the reported involvement of architectural savants like Tom Main and Peter Cook in it. Architects around the world had mixed opinions regarding the design of the project and its location. From a design point, the reflective mirrored surface might look cutting-edge, but its consequences would be awful, even if the issue of maintenance is overlooked. The reflective surface would increase the heat around it exponentially. Guy Marriage, an architect and senior lecturer at Victoria University of Wellington, referenced a similar incident in Hastings in the UK, where a mirrored glass building caused objects to melt due to the reflected light at a nearby shop. The desert's unforgiving nature poses other risks for the city. Well known for its high temperatures and low precipitation, ensuring the durability and sustainability of the buildings and infrastructure would make a serious challenge. Such a metropolis amid a desert will require a veritable army of workers to keep it functioning and serving the elite within. No mention has been made of where these workers will be housed on the luxurious premises, but that concern would be addressed after it gets built, despite its design. Its linear design is pointed out as a direct break from an established tenet of architecture, that straight lines in architectural design are not natural and work against nature. But it seems the line is designed straight for a very practical reason. You see, the city's futuristic and flashy transit plan would only work best if it's built in a straight line. A train that's capable of traveling from one end to the other in 20 minutes can only be a high-speed rail. In this case, the fastest in the world. To meet the principle of conveying passengers to any destination within the city in 20 minutes, it will have to be limited to just 4 stops. But once you do the numbers, the math is mind-boggling. To cover 105 miles in 20 minutes, the train would need to travel at an incredible speed of 316 miles per hour, significantly faster than any existing train. Traveling at this speed requires non-stop travel, which could be impractical for residents living along the middle of the line. It would also require frequent trains running constantly. The 5-minute city concept might just be a pipe dream for yet another reason, as to date, even the best train systems haven't been able to reduce traveling time within a major city to less than 20 minutes. These ultra-high-speed trains will be aided by elevated transport pods that soar above the city, offering a futuristic and efficient way to travel. Of course, that technology is yet to be invented. There's always the choice of choosing to ride elevators or take the stairs, but don't forget the elevator queues and rides. A real time suck. Or you could take the scenic route up a 3,000-step stair climb to the top. This brings us to the basic question of how NEOM will power all that technology. If the line is going to house around 9 million people, which comes up to about half the population of New York City, it should require around 5,000 megawatts of power per day, just for basic needs. Factor in the power required to run the water desalination plants, which is an energy guzzler, and its needs would be much higher. Then add in the power needed by people to run their air conditioning units 24/7, and energy from roughly 4 nuclear power plants is needed to meet the total requirements of the city. Since it costs between $12 and $28 billion to build one power plant, the total cost would come to a staggering $30 to $40 billion. But since that doesn't gel with their zero carbon impact claims, they're likely to chase a mix of renewable energy sources, which is likely to be an expensive venture. But the hits just keep on coming. The project's ambitions run to the positively bizarre, like climate control. NEOM plans to use cloud seeding to induce rainfall in the desert, a technology that's still under development. It has plans to explore genetic engineering options to enhance human capabilities. And it will all happen under the gentle glare of illuminated landmarks like a giant artificial moon that will light up the night sky and a beach with glowing sand. As if such plans are not impressive enough, NEOM has thrown in robotics and AI for good measure. Robotic dinosaur parks and even robot cage fights will entertain the crowds. To check if it's doable, in 2019, the Wall Street Journal reviewed 2,300 pages of documents put together by consultants at BCG McKinsey and Oliver Wyman. The consultants were hired to make magic and turn MBS's idea into a reality. Instead, the specialists realized that the project's success was dependent on non-existent technology. Even the AI that is to manage the entire city doesn't exist at the moment, which might actually be a good thing. Imagine living in a city with a truly atrocious track record for fundamental human rights and freedoms being surveilled by a fully automated AI that is reporting to the government. The line would be ripe for becoming a full-fledged surveillance city, a concern already shared by digital rights advocates. A growing number of renowned architects have already pulled out of the project due to concerns over human rights and its environmental impact despite the limited information available on it. You see, there's a shroud of secrecy surrounding the project that's enforced by ironclad confidentiality agreements, leaving no room for transparency. Another red flag that's hard to ignore. But what about the environmental cost of the megaproject? There are always some, and this one has a lot. Apparently, Salman's vision of an ecological utopia might be deeply flawed. The city that was supposed to fight climate change might actually accelerate it. NEOM might promise a 100% carbon-neutral future, but the construction process itself will generate a staggering 1.8 billion tons of carbon dioxide, dwarfing the United Kingdom's annual emissions. The city's location presents multiple challenges, like its need to withstand severe weather conditions and winds. The buildings will have to be built using carbon-intensive materials like glass and steel, effectively throwing its sustainability claims out the window. So, NEOM's zero-carbon aspirations are a fallacy even in its infancy. Its mirrored surfaces mean an early death to its sustainability promises, as well as migratory birds. The line's mirrored walls present a deadly threat to migratory bird species that fly through the northwest of Saudi Arabia. Birds are often known to collide with glass structures all over the world. Scientists estimate that billions of birds die annually from such collisions. Birds crashing into the reflective glass facade will be a daily occurrence, which would multiply during the migration season. But the line's impact goes beyond birds to the direct impact on local wildlife. Its rigid, geometric design disregards natural topography, which is always factored into architecture. Factors like water sources and animal corridors have been disregarded, which will disrupt ecosystems and contribute to biodiversity loss. There will be disruption in natural animal corridors by separating them from their own species. The ones living together will be low in number, and the line will cause inbreeding amongst species. There will not be free movement of animals across the line, which will create a massive fragment, with weaker species being killed. The same glass surface is likely to put a supersized spanner into the plans to grow vegetation on the top surface of the buildings. The heat generated by the glass surface would likely be lethal enough to kill off any plantation. And the amount of water required to keep the entire city and its inhabitants, both animal and plant, cool would require massive water input. This then brings us to the desalination plants planned to water the city. Desalinating water is a process with significant environmental drawbacks. Not only do these plants require a substantial amount of energy to extract fresh water from seawater, but the process generates a concentrated brine solution that, if not properly disposed of, can decimate marine ecosystems. The entire process poses irreversible damage risks to the environment. For example, the chemicals used to prevent the buildup of scale and other deposits in the plant's equipment can pollute the surrounding marine environment. The intake pipes of these plants can also pose a risk to marine life, as organisms may become trapped or injured. At the end of the day, to extract each gallon of drinkable water, 2 gallons of seawater are used. That's not a good deal for any party involved in the process, directly or indirectly. In the end, the city's dependence on desalination makes it extremely vulnerable to any breakdown, knocking another nail in the coffin of sustainability. The harsh desert environment is an inhospitable host, with animals and plants needing a constant source of water. Even a single point of failure, such as a water shortage, could trigger a catastrophic collapse of the city's infrastructure, including its carefully planned green spaces. But all that will come after the construction process has already wreaked havoc on the surroundings. Researchers at Schema Business School have calculated that the construction of the line would generate about 1.8 gigatons of CO2. That will spell death for the line's claim to be the world's first eco-friendly city. Smart cities are often touted as the ultimate solution to the planet's climate crisis, promising reduced carbon footprints and sustainable living. Yet, the harsh reality paints a different picture. The massive environmental cost of their construction and supply chains often outweighs any potential carbon reductions these cities might achieve in the future. These elements mark the city as a bad idea with worse consequences. But these consequences aren't limited to an ecological disaster. It's likely to be an economic calamity for Saudi Arabia as well. The idea behind floating Vision 2030 is to reinvent the Saudi economy by taking it in a new direction, one that takes the country to technology and innovation. The mega projects are truly captivating, but they are a small part of the drive to develop new sectors within the Saudi economy. These new developments include investments in sports, specifically $6.3 billion spent since 2021. This includes buying foreign soccer clubs and investing heavily in overseas real estate. It also includes strategic investments in hydrogen, mining, and commerce, which are keys to achieving these goals. So, Vision 2030 is meant to break Saudi's heavy reliance on its vast oil wealth. Meanwhile, MBS has announced that 50% of Saudi Arabia's electricity will be produced by renewable energy by 2030. Not only has it produced its oil-producing identity on the back burner as it tries to sell a brand spanking new image to the world, but it's willing to put its money where its mouth is. The Saudi crown prince is also starting to sell the state-owned oil firm Aramco. Though the start is a trickle, with just minority stakes getting sold while the government retains its control of the majority, it's likely to turn into an avalanche. Considered the most valuable oil firm in the world, with a $161 billion profit in the year 2022, Saudi Arabia has shown it means business by putting its gold goose on the market. Saudi Arabia has also unveiled its plans to diversify further by starting the extraction of its vast mineral reserves. In January of 2024, it declared its estimates for its untapped mineral resources like phosphates, gold, copper, zinc, and rare earths from $1.3 to $2.5 trillion. It's not particularly worried that it might run out of oil anytime soon, or that the world might not need its oil due to its transition to green living. Though these factors might become a problem in the distant future, that's not on the horizon at the moment. The reality is that oil, once the lifeblood of Saudi Arabia's economy, is no longer as lucrative as it used to be. As the world's largest oil producer, Saudi Arabia finds itself grappling with declining market demand and the growing volatility of fossil fuel prices. Adding to this challenge is the country's rapidly growing population, which creates a far larger economic burden than many of its neighbors face. With a population of almost 34.2 million, Saudi Arabia has the fourth most populous country in the Arab world. Saudi Arabia has 3.6 residents per oil barrel produced, while the United Arab Emirates has 3, Qatar has 2.1, and Kuwait has 1.6. Saudi Arabia might be the largest country in the Gulf Cooperation Council, but it also has the highest poverty rate at 13.6%. According to the World Bank, from 1991, its GDP per capita didn't budge until 2021, marking 3 decades of economic stagnation, and the rate of oil has remained constant. What's worse is that GDP is lower than much smaller petrostates. For example, Saudi Arabia's GDP per capita is less than half that of the United Arab Emirates, around $20,000 and $40,000 respectively. The Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, or OPEC, has seen its influence on the global oil market diminish in recent years. While OPEC members hold approximately 80% of the world's proven oil reserves, they only produce about 40% of the global crude oil output. To maintain control over oil prices and production, OPEC has formed an alliance with non-OPEC members, notably Russia, creating the OPEC Plus group. This expanded group now controls roughly half of global oil production, allowing it to exert greater influence on the market. However, the rise of other oil-producing nations outside of OPEC, such as the United States, has challenged its dominance and reduced its ability to unilaterally dictate oil prices. These problems are exacerbated by many countries not following targets set by the organization. In recent years, members have either been unable to meet production quotas or have overpumped oil to increase cash flow, since some countries in the organization are very poor. An added complication is the US, which has been working very hard to limit Saudi Arabia and Russia's efforts to boost oil prices to $100 per barrel. Riyadh has taken a severe hit to its finances by limiting oil production to boost its price, but that has been offset by the US pumping more and releasing oil from its strategic reserves in North America. Consequently, the $92 per barrel international price from September has plummeted to $72 per barrel. Understandably, Saudi Arabia is tired of this game of hide-and-seek and wants out. Vision 2030 is that out. It intends to finance its NEOM project primarily through a combination of public and private sources. To bring the line to life, an eye-watering $320 billion has been allocated for the first phase of the project, scheduled to run until 2030. Roughly half of this funding will come from Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, PIF, a financial powerhouse managing $925 billion in assets. Government subsidies and other sovereign wealth funds in the region will fund the other half. Naturally, Saudi private investors are also expected to pitch in during a potential public listing of NEOM in 2024. Though listing hasn't happened yet, rumors are already flying that this investment is unlikely to be consensual. Hardly surprising, since several of the kingdom's wealthiest families were pressured or even coerced into investing in Aramco's IPO out of a sense of national duty rather than purely financial motives. At the end of the day, the bottom line is that decades of Saudi oil wealth carefully hoarded for a post-oil future will fuel NEOM's astronomical price tag. The grapevine is suggesting that it's already finding it hard to find investors interested in hopping on the NEOM bandwagon. Despite intense resistance and criticism of the project, no one has the guts to address the elephant in the room. Will MBS's grandiose venture bankrupt the kingdom? It just might, given the latest news pouring in from there. According to a Bloomberg report, the Saudi sovereign wealth fund's cash reserves have fallen to $15 billion as of September, the lowest level since 2020. Business Insider is reporting that Saudi Arabia's mega projects have become too hot to handle. They've become so expensive that their oil wealth can no longer cover the cost. The country has been reduced to borrowing from creditors. Incidentally, NEOM has also forced its hand to sell off Aramco's shares. That's not all. In 2020, Saudi Arabia decided to force the hand of its citizens by tripling the value-added tax from 5 to 15%, which some Saudis refer to now as the NEOM tax. So, Saudi public money is going to be sunk into a project that has practically zero chances of taking off. But there is one reason, as big as the project itself, for NEOM going off the rail. Given its location by the Red Sea, the project cannot be a success without Israel's consent and support. Located on the lap of the region where NEOM is being built, Israel has the technical know-how in biotechnology, cybersecurity, and manufacturing which can make MBS's dream come true. Experts like Dr. Ali Dogan have even suggested that good Saudi relations with Israel are essential for NEOM's success. That has been one of the reasons for the rumors surrounding Saudi Arabia's thawing relations with the country. But this warming up has been kept hush-hush due to Saudi Arabia's perceived leadership role in the Islamic world and the sensitivity surrounding the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Israel's Gaza campaign has further complicated a difficult situation. making overt cooperation with Israel politically risky. But in November of 2020, Israeli officials claimed that Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman hosted Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo in Neom. While Saudi Arabia denied that the meeting ever took place, there were reports by witnesses in air traffic control who saw such plane movements on their screens. The line might be a grand experiment meant to diversify and drive the Saudi economy, but it's like planting a seed in barren land and expecting a forest to grow. History has shown that true urban development is rooted in economic vitality, not architectural ambition. And that is one lesson learned from numerous such ventures seen before. You see, Neom is not the first of its kind. The graveyard of history is filled with the bones of mega-projects. Launched with great ambition, but little foresight, leaders blinded by ambition have sacrificed vast resources on these colossal failures. Michael Pettis, a professor of finance at Peking University in China, and a writer on global economic growth, warns that infrastructure spending should be a cost of growth, not a cause. He should know, since all across China, from Beijing in the north to Shenzhen in the south, there are millions of newly constructed homes that are standing empty even today. There are over 60 million unsold apartments, which would take more than 4 years to sell without government aid. It's gotten so bad that China's central bank recently announced a $41 billion fund to help local governments buy these unsold homes. Then there's Burj Al Babas, a town positioned near the Black Sea in the Roman spa town of Modurnu. Meant to offer high-end luxury accommodation to rich Arabs looking for the scenery of the south of France or Italy from the comfort of mini-castles, each going for a cool $370,000 to $500,000. The castles, 587 to be exact, were built by the Saro Properties Group, and to this day, the town remains eerily deserted. Up next is Paradise City. Built between 2001 and 2011, it's located 31 miles outside of Iran's capital, Tehran. It had been planned as an autonomous city, with an independent transport network, hospitals, schools, and parks. Instead, it's a ghost town surrounded by desert sand. The 100 dull tower blocks are slowly eroding under the glare of an unforgiving sun, crumbling slowly as a result of an earthquake that shook the region back in 2017. There are cities like this dotted all over the Middle East, fantasies of oil-rich kings and dictators. King Abdullah Economic City is a page right out of the Saudi Arabian Nights storybook. Built in 2005 as a part of 6 cities meant to attract foreign investment, create more than 1 million jobs, and add $150 billion to GDP, it was cut down to just one city, built at a colossal cost of $30 billion. Today, it has a population of just 7,000 people, despite its target of having 2 million residents by 2035. Such duds are modern-day takes on the Colosseum, the Parthenon, the Egyptian pyramids, and all vanity projects of the ruling elite. As human civilization has advanced, marvels like the Goddard Tunnel of Switzerland, the Panama Canal, and the International Space Station, the most expensive structure in the world to date, built at the cost of $150 billion, have all been raving successes. But the duds are proof in themselves that it doesn't always end well. The fact is that more often than not, megastructures tend to turn out to be mega failures. Cost and time overruns are usually attached to such projects. Throw in unpredictable external developments, political or economic, and you've got a very expensive mess on your hands. Their proposers often overpromise and underdeliver, but their results are borne by the people much later at great cost to them. They are a reinvention of the phrase, for the people, by the people. And in the case of the line, 9 million people will be lured out into the desert by 2045, which has no factories, population centers, or infrastructure. And what will their task be? Build an economy from scratch. Make no mistake, Neom could be completed despite all these setbacks and prove to be a success eventually. But at what cost? The country may still be able to overcome the loss of capital either way given its oil-rich economy. But nothing comes for free, and there is always a price paid for such expensive ventures. That cost will fall on Saudi Arabia's economy and its people. Even if it is a success, that would be counted as a Pyrrhic victory. There could have been a host of other projects that would have cost less and given more dividends more directly, effectively, and much sooner. There's no denying it. Saudi Arabia has pretty much backed itself into a corner. The scenario has given new meaning to the term, damned if you do, damned if you don't. Going ahead with the plan could prove to be too expensive and a waste of capital if it becomes impossible to execute. That would lead to a slide in the public's standard of living, leading to rising public discontent, with serious social and political consequences. On the other hand, abandoning it is also politically untenable. It would knock out investor confidence and irreparably damage MBS's standing as a leader. It seems the scaling back of the project is the only wise decision available to MBS, since economically it might prove the lesser of two evils. What is already established is that the line won't be built as originally planned. This process might be the first of multiple reductions, and who knows, the process might continue until it's more molehill than mountain. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you want to see more videos like this, then please consider subscribing and turn on notifications. It really does make a difference. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time on MatPack.